We're live.
Yes, our. Okay, good morning, the people on this side of the ocean. Good morning, good evening, the people back home. Today, our discussion is on narcissism. Saya and I resisted this topic. Joanne, I think you're the one who dragged us into it because we had refused. We had said it's a buzzword until we were convinced otherwise. And today is one of those mkutano where we have to put a disclaimer. After this, you're not going to go around claiming and diagnosing everyone as a narcissist. This is information to help you and not, you don't go around diagnosing people. No, this is not our aim. Haya. So with that said, Saya, tufungulie kituo.
So I went over to Lagos, Nigeria, and they have a dish called pepper soup. And you wonder why it's called pepper soup until you eat it. It's, you insert the food in your mouth and your tongue goes numb. The food is in your mouth, but you wonder why you're holding your head. And you're feeling sensations, you're feeling literal fire, and it's fire in, and you feel the fire all the way in, and later on when you'll have to visit the small room, it'll be fire out. And if my description hasn't helped you know, I don't remember the taste of the food, I just remember the fire that I felt. Let's share that story for a minute. Whichever place you are, you probably have a relative or a community where people use deodorant or sprays or perfumes. But then you always have this one individual, or you have this section of the community who, let's just say, go a bit over the top. And when they're approaching you, you don't even get to know who they are because they are all perfume. And you can't almost, the essence of them is almost lost because it's, you're almost having a headache when you're with them. Now, you could walk away from that engagement and hate everything perfume, or you could come to the conclusion that this individual or this community or that person has overdone the perfume. My wife and I have a running joke. My wife does not have a sweet tooth. She, things that I find okay in sweetness, she may find very extremely sweet. And things that she compensates, on the other hand, by having a slightly more salty tongue. And when I say slightly, I'm just being a good husband here. I think she has Mrs. Lot at times as a cooking assistant from time to time. She's great. And when the days when Lot's wife falls into the pot, is a kind way of saying the food becomes salty, the meal is present. You can see what you're eating, but what you're tasting, what you're sensing is a salt. What's common in all these three stories, in the pepper stew of Lagos, in the perfume of Person X, and in the oversalted food that I experience from time to time on? By the disclaimer, my wife is an extremely good cook, very good cook. Is this, it is, in one word, it is when make-up becomes the whole make-up of a person or of a thing. Now, salt is great for food. It helps bring out the taste of food. And if something is sour, it helps to sweeten it. You've put salt on a pineapple and the pineapple becomes a bit better. But that just requires that the salt is a little, in essence, it's a make-up. It's not the core constitution of the food, but it just helps to bring out. And when you overdo the salt is when now we are saying when this thing that is meant to make up for some taste becomes the entire makeup, it moves from palatable to poisonous or unpleasant. It's the same thing with condiments, whether it's chili or pepper. When you put just a little, just the right amount, it helps to bring out the flavor of the food. But when it becomes when it subsumes the entire plate of food, it soon becomes the entire makeup, in this case, pepper stew. And it, for me, was not a pleasant experience. And then something with perfume, it's okay to put, some perfume. You need to smell a little well. I'm sure Posa would be, she tells me in medical circles, they don't do sprays because of allergies. But for we other normal human beings who sprays are okay, a little goes a long way. But when it becomes too much, again, it's the same thing. When makeup becomes your entire makeup, it now becomes nauseating. What's true with pepper stew or salt or perfume can also be true with an individual, that there are things that make us up, your sense of worth, your sense of pride, your sense of dignity. Those are important things to have. They help bring out the values and the skills that you have inherently within you. But when those particular things, the things that are meant to be make up, then become the whole meal of you, you begin moving from becoming a healthy, normal, balanced being to somebody who is like that pepper stew to me, or like that extremely strong perfume to every other person. Simply put, you become obnoxious. But even one more step further, it's one thing when that person who overdoes perfume is not aware, or that person who oversalts food is not aware, or that person who overdoes makeup is not aware. But it's another thing when those people who overdo makeup or food or paper have to do it because, in a sense, it is in this makeup is what they feel they get their ultimate sense of worth. Then the question is, you need to step back and begin asking yourself, what are you hiding behind all that perfume? What are you really trying to hide behind all that salt? What are you really trying to mask behind all of that pepper that you're putting in the food? And let's take away the condiments and the food illustration and just come to the individuals. When you make up the things that make you up, your sense of pride, your sense of dignity, become the whole makeup and the constitution that drives you, it's also time for you to step back and ask yourself, what are you overusing those things to try and cover up? What's the stench of your life that you're trying to use your sense of power to come over and overcome? What's the insufficiency within your life that your sense of projection or pride or power or dignity is being used to overcompensate? Because in the same way, a meal that is overdone with condiments ceases to be palatable, is the same way the meal of our personalities, when it is overdone with the condiments of confidence and of power, soon makes us people who are unpalatable in the public square. The big term we use, and probably even at times overuse, is what we have now come to call narcissism, people who are narcissistic. Today, we hope to peel back almost layer by layer and not become armchair diagnoses of ourselves or of others becoming narcissistic, but to really understand what is this thing that is called narcissism. But more importantly, what is it that drives individuals to the point where that which is meant to make up, be used seldomly, becomes the thing that constitutes them, it makes them up. It's time to have this authentic conversation about when makeup becomes your makeup. It's time to talk about narcissism. Back to in studio.
Thank you for that, for the pepper soup, and I think it brings the subject it brings the subject home. Thank you. As usual, let's start with definition. So, what is narcissism? How we even pronouncing it properly? Okay, we are gonna put all the Kenyanese, narcissism, whatever your tongue rolls with, tutenda tunayo. Jacinta, what is narcissism? You are mute.
I forgot I muted myself. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Saya had that disclaimer, rightly so, that we're overusing these words, narcissism, narc. We are diagonizing anybody who is incapable of or refuses to give us what we need. We diagnose them and call them narc. And not everyone who is incapable of giving you or giving you what you need is a narc or a narcissist. But narcissism is, I think it's really a medical, it needs to be diagnosed. Only people with this mental illness are not self-aware or don't believe that there is anything wrong with them, so they almost never get any diagnosed because they truly believe they are okay and they truly believe they are superior. But it's characterized by somebody who, when you deal with them and you live with them, it feels like a full-time job just managing them or just surviving them. They tend to be extremely grandiose, very manipulative. It feels like the person that you live with under the same roof and the person who shows up in public places are two different individuals. But you constantly feel like you're not yourself, and they make you feel like you have lost your mind. We call that gaslighting. And when you meet them for the very first time, if they overpour affection and attention and love, so to speak, to you, and it feels like they are too much. Now, not all of them are like romantic situations. Sometimes it's our own parents, sometimes it's our sibling, but when you live with them, you will literally feel like everybody exists to serve their needs. Everybody is a means to an end. Everything and everyone is there to serve a purpose that is very self-centered towards the person, and they're constantly triangulating. They're constantly manipulating each and every person they meet, and there is a feeling about them that is, they don't know how to self-regulate. So they will have a lot of rage, they will have a lot of manipulative tactics, they will outsource all their in all their problems. They make them your problem. You're the problem all the time. Anything they do wrong, they will turn it around and make you the one who made them do it, or the one who is wrong. So narcissism is this. I think the only way to summarize it is extreme emotional immaturity. When you're dealing with them, you literally feel like you're dealing with a 4-year-old. And for all intents and purposes, their emotional development is that of a young child. So that's really how you experience narcissists. But usually they are operating like that because they've had adverse childhood experiences, and they were probably they probably had a lot of abuse and neglect, childhood PTSD. There's always some childhood root to why they show up the way they do. But when you're dealing with one, you will know, because they will feel like it's a full-time job just to respond to them, manage their emotions, defend yourself against. That's narcissism in a nutshell.
And must they be always grandiose, or there are those chinyamaji or covert narcissists?
Yeah, so covert ones are not, and those ones are very hard to deal with, because they don't have the grandiosity of most of the ones that we know that are they're very into getting adored. They're into adoration. They're talking big. They have a lot of charm and charisma. There are those who are covert narcissists who are very low key, but only you who lives with them will actually be able to see this. So they're not always grandiose. Many of them are.
Okay, Joanne, do you want to add anything to the definition?
The one thing I can add to the definition, or just to simplify, is to clarify, all of us human beings, every human being has narcissistic tendencies, what we don't hear about is the healthy narcissism, which is just understanding yourself and knowing yourself and not focusing on validation from others. You're able to self-regulate, but there is an internal focus on self as well, which is not selfishness. It's just knowing yourself and loving yourself and being able to self-regulate. Now, a lot of narcissists, so there's narcissist and there's narcissistic personality disorder. The narcissistic personality disorder is a diagnosed mental illness that literally is diagnosed by a psychiatrist or maybe a therapist, I don't know. But the people who truly have that narcissistic personality disorder rarely ever get diagnosed because they do not believe anything is wrong with them. They are the ones that Jacinta is describing, people who are focused on external, who are grandiose, who will gaslight you. And for those who don't know what gaslighting means, is if you're in a relationship with a person and you're constantly questioning yourself. So like, for example, I'm drinking coffee, I leave this coffee mug here, and then when I come back, I'm fighting with everybody in the house and asking them why the coffee cup is here. And they're like, but you left it there. And I'm like, no, I left it in the sink. I washed my coffee cup. And that's the way the narcissists operate. They will make you question your sanity. Mm-hmm. So if you find yourself questioning yourself, whereby with outside of this person, you know that you believe what you do, you know that you solid mentally, you know that you know what you know, but whenever you're with this person, you're always questioning whether you said something or whether you did something or whether you know something, then you're probably dealing with somebody who is very high on the narcissistic tendency or has NPD, which is narcissistic personality disorder. And because they're not usually diagnosed, we have so many of them walking around. We have very many walking around and just being destructive in relationships, in workplaces, in churches. There are four types of people who tend to be very highly narcissistic career-wise. And those are, and today is Sunday, so those church people, please forgive me, but pastors are very high on the spectrum, very, very high on the spectrum. DJs, very high on the spectrum. Politicians, very, very high on the spectrum. And then doctors, medical doctors, people who are in careers that are, sometimes you have to have this very high self-esteem and very, like people have to gravitate towards you, people have to believe you. A narcissist suffers from very low self-esteem, and so this behavior of grandiosity and self-importance is to mask the lack of self-esteem. Exactly. So I'll stop there.
So let's just go back to the healthy, because I think all of us think being a narcissist is always a negative thing. So what is and Joanne, you already alluded to it. So what's a healthy narcissism and how do we nurture it? Then now we can go to the bad things, and either of you can start. Okay, go ahead.
Typically, the healthy narcissism starts with, and I don't like using that word because it's very confusing. And narcissist/narcissism is a buzzword in the world we are living in right now. So the fact that there is even a healthy narcissism is like usually rejected very quickly. However, when you look at a healthy narcissism, it is the focus on self. For example, an infant or a young child under the age of 2 is does not focus on what other people want, will not care whether you didn't sleep 24 hours. When they're hungry, feed them. When their diaper is wet, you change it. When they are dysregulated and they're uncomfortable and they're crying, you soothe them. Healthy narcissism in an adult looks like being able to focus on self and meet your own needs versus focusing on your needs being met by other people or being other people's problems. It is, if you're uncomfortable, are you able to solve your problems yourself? Are you able to feed yourself? Are you able to self-regulate? Are you able to not blame other people for how you're feeling? Because other people do not make us feel. We feel regardless. We were born with feelings. So if Jacinta is acting crazy and I'm feeling a certain way, Jacinta is not making me feel. I am just feeling. So that is the healthy narcissism. The distinction is narcissism is focused on other with grandiosity, with blame, with manipulation, with all the things that typically create a very tumultuous relationship for the other person. I hope that makes sense, Posa.
It does. Jacinta, do you want to add on and answer also Agola's question? And can one have the unhealthy narcissism without knowing?
Yes, they are not, narcissists are not people who are on the unhealthy narcissism. They are not self-aware. They also tend to lack empathy for other people. So they don't sit back and reflect on how their behavior is affecting others. And so to answer Agola's question is, yes, they're not usually self-aware, they're not introspective, because a normal person would be, if I am dealing with Joanne and I'm doing some actions towards her or with her or around her, a healthy person would ask, how is my behavior going to affect Joanne's feelings? What are the words that I use? How are they going to affect Joanne, right? That's healthy relating. For narcissists, they are not aware and they're not introspective. And more importantly, they lack empathy and compassion. So they are not concerned about, it's all me. It's all about, what do I need right now? What can I do to get my way? So they don't go inward. And again, they, at the core of it is people who are very fractured, people with deep low self-esteem, people who have a lot of self-loathing, but they don't want to go visit there, right? So they focus externally, and all that grandiosity and extreme need for attention and affection and to be adored is to mask all of that. So they don't necessarily go back and start asking how am I showing up? How are my actions and words affecting other people? As I said, they're not very self-aware, and even they're not thinking there's anything wrong with them, right? Yeah. So it's like they operate in this universe where they're constantly trying to mask whatever they feel towards themselves. They go to extreme lengths to I guess they have a little bit of self-awareness, because there's always a fear that at some point they are going to be discovered, because they feel fraudulent. They feel like frauds inside. So they always feel like at some point somebody is going to discover just how self-loathing or how poorly they feel about themselves. And so they up the ante when it comes to external focus.
Okay, I just want us to, I think it's important for us to touch on the buzzwords that are related to narcissism. Then we can now go to the different relationships and how narcissism shows up. But let's touch, I think we've touched on some of them, the buzzwords that relate to narcissism. So, and the ones I forget, you guys will add. So manipulation, gaslighting, love bombing, flying monkeys, hoovering, fracturing, whatever buzzword asks you or you like, you can take it away. So let's just define them for them define them for the people here, and then we see, does that Kizungu imepotea ama imeingia?
I think it's okay. I think it's okay.
Okay, let's go. You just meant the ones that you've seen, the ones you use in your circles, and then sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
Sorry to overspeak you. I think for the less nerdy, I think maybe a good approach there would be you as Po just have your list and then shoot out one by one so that people understand what
so
the answer moja even.
Let's the people, Swahili just Joanne, I'm sorry, Swahili just beautiful.
I'm not even going to just do you
right?
Yes.
Okay, let's start. I think the most famous is gaslighting. Let's start with that one.
I can take that, and I'm going to let Jacinta do the others because she's she when she does her classes, she has a focus on this. I, on the flip side, touch very little on narcissism intentionally.
Yeah.
So, gaslighting, like I said earlier on, is where a person is using manipulation, which is the other word that we have in terms of words that are associated with narcissists. So uses manipulation to get the other person to own something that is not theirs to own. So for example, if you are with a narcissist in a romantic relationship, they will constantly flip stories or flip realities to make them look like you are doing something that you're really truly not doing. So they use lies, they use manipulation is the best word. There's actually no other word. It's manipulation. And I hope everybody knows what manipulation is because it's hard to explain. But basically the person makes you feel crazy for questioning or calling out their bad behavior. Does that answer?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
And as Paul says,
and people can ask questions in the over here in the chat.
Yes, I think Neo Kuchocha. Kuchocha would be good.
Kuchochea for what for us.
Yes.
It's a person who is constantly chocheering.
Yes. Okay. Oh, Jacinta, then you have the whole dictionary. Just go with your list. Then if there's any that comes to my mind, I will let you know. I answer now. What can you say? Love bombing, because you're our relationship person.
Yes, because that's where it starts actually. It starts with and I'm talking this in a relational, from a relational standpoint, not a family member. It always starts with love bombing, which is extreme pouring of affection and attention and using words that are meant to make you feel like you've never been loved before. And it's meant to create this instant high, to bypass the organic process of connecting, right? And to create an attachment, not connection, an attachment, but it's meant to disorient you as the person, to feel this instant attraction to the person. So they may start by texting you multiple times. They may ask you what you like. If you say, I like chocolate, they don't just send you a box of chocolate. They may go and order you a dozen boxes of chocolate and deliver them to your door. Or you like roses, they may send you a truckload of roses. So it's usually a very extreme amount of attention being poured into you very fast, very quickly, and they may even claim a soulmate connection right away. Within a number of weeks of meeting them, they already wifing you or husbanding you, right? It's very extreme, but that is also meant to create what we call a trauma bond, because as fast as they pour that affection and attention onto you, make no mistake, within a couple months of that, they're going to drop you. Like they're going to completely, you will wake up one day and it's like the person who existed yesterday and the person you woke up to, two different people, they have ghosted you. And so because they created this high and put you up there on a mountaintop, you woke up and you're in somebody's basement, you're in the basement, right? And so what's that's gonna create, because you already had that extreme high, that is gonna create the chase in you. That's what how a trauma bond begins. So they will put you on a high and then drop you. And they will constantly come back and give you a little bit of intermittent reinforcement. When you're about, when they sense you're about to walk away, they will come and pour it, give you, dangle the carrot a little bit and then take it back. So it creates this push and pull. It creates a feeling of feast and famine over time, and love and hate, and it really is very confusing for the person who is in it. So it always starts with the love bombing, but the love bombing actually ends up creating a really bad trauma bond with them. And the other part of that is when you now move on to the gaslighting, the extreme manipulation, the diminish and discount, which is where they are constantly tearing you down, bringing you down a notch, that talking about, just saying things that are meant to give you, to make you question yourself, your body image, your own ability to do anything. So when that starts, for the person who is in it, who tends to have a lot of an extreme amount of empathy. See, the narcissist doesn't have any empathy. They tend to pick a partner who has the disempowered empath, so to speak, the one who has an extreme amount of empathy, who sees the good in everyone. So that person is going to hold on to those experiences of the love bombing. So even when they abuse, the discarding, the manipulation, the triangulation starts, and they are in extreme pain from the experiences with this person, they will hold on to the person they saw, the illusion they saw at the beginning. And so even when their friend is trying to tell them, listen, my friend, this is not a healthy situation. This person is completely toxic. The empath will be like, but you don't know her, you don't know him. I have seen the side of him that shows up and buys 2 business class tickets to Dubai on a whim and surprises me and sends me chocolate. Like, you hold on to that. And trust me, you're going to hold on to that illusion for dear life. So it creates this, and the gaslighting that Joanne talked about, it also creates self-doubt in you. You start questioning your own thought process, your own experience of the person. And you're constantly thinking, oh, maybe I'm overreacting. Or maybe I'm the one who is seeing things, because they make you think that you're the one who is seeing things. After the love bombing, usually there's a very subtle at first, a subtle process of removing you from the people you care about, which is isolating you. And it starts very, very nicely, like very, very subtle. So it may start like, so Jacinta, how long have you known Joanne? Oh, 10 years plus. But have you ever noticed your friendship is actually very one-sided? Joanne is always using you. Joanne is doing this, like it's said in a way that you start questioning that friendship or that closeness. That can be your siblings, it can be the people you work with, it can be people you are close to, but it's meant to now start questioning the other people's loyalty towards you. So that's usually the next process of it. And then there's the gaslighting, the extreme gaslighting, and it goes all the way to extreme abuse. But because you're now in a deep trauma bond with them, it's almost impossible to pull yourself unless now you're aware that what a trauma bond is and how to start distancing yourself from it. But they're not going to just let you walk away. This is why in a dating situation, the going no contact is the most effective way, but going no contact is not an easy thing, because again, you're bonded in a very toxic way to this person, and they always make sure that the minute you try to walk away, they come and love bomb you again. So it's a very, very difficult situation for a person to be in.
Okay, I think that's well covered. What about, do you use flying monkeys, especially amongst Kenyans? Oh, we do. Okay, so what's flying monkeys?
So one of the things that narcissists are very good at is manipulating everyone around them, right? And so every person in your circle that you commonly know between yourselves is used as a means to an end. So if the people around you, that can be your mother, that can be your children, that can be your friends, anybody you know in common, is used to either get information. And I use an example of a breakup. And I always tell women, you have to be very careful. I coach mostly women, how you share information. And especially when you're trying to distance yourself or to divorce or break up with a narcissist, because they use everyone that you know in common to get information about what you're about to do. So what we do when we are trying to distance ourselves from a situation, I will call Joanne, my friend, and say, hey, this one is too much now. I think I'm gonna file for divorce, or I'm gonna break up with this person. But this person already knows Joanne is my friend. So what they are going to do is call Joanne and just sweet talk Joanne and manipulate Joanne to give them information about what I am about to do. And so it may be something like, hey, have you heard from Jacinta? I've been trying to get a hold of her, but she's avoiding my calls, or she's blocked me, or whatever. And I really love Jacinta, and I miss her so much. And Joanne inadvertently may say something like, hey, the way you've been treating Jacinta, I think at this point she's done with you. She just gave information to their person, and she became a flying monkey. Sometimes we are telling our mothers, and the person who is the narcissistic person is going to charm our mother into giving information inadvertently, right? So flying monkeys can be your housemaid who knows exactly what you're doing at any given time. It can be, I've had a client who had an office manager that became the flying monkey, giving the person all the information. It can be your BFF, it can be the friends that you have in common. So in a situation like that, the way you share information, it has to be completely people you don't even know in common. So if you are going to think I'm going to file for divorce, I need to heal myself, you're not going to be sharing that information with the people you know in common, because trust me, by the time that person is done with them, they have all the information that they need. And it's usually like very subtle. They always pretend that they care about you, or they care about the person they're getting information from. So everybody around you that you know in common becomes a flying monkey. They are being used without their knowledge to get the person what they need to get from you.
And for those,
can I add something real quick while we're still on this topic? For those narcissists or narcissistic humans who really are emotionally unaware and very emotionally immature, which is 99.99% of them, they will go to the extent of using children to get information. So if you suspect that you are in a relationship with a narcissist, be very careful about how you share information with children. Because a lot of us also tend to not be emotionally mature, even if we are not narcissists, right? We don't know, we don't have healthy boundaries with ourselves, with children, with family. And so we are giving information to people who do not know how to hold your information in a safe space, in a safe way. You're telling people your story who do not deserve to hear your story. And therefore, it becomes everybody's story. It becomes free for all, and the information is given to the narcissist. It's given to maybe somebody else who might be the flying monkey for the narcissist, but it was unintentional. You're just like, I'm sharing information with Jacinta, but Jacinta is sharing information with Posa, and Posa has connection with the narcissist, right? And so the information is getting to this person, and the person is using this information against you. So by all means, protect your children from this information, from adult things that are specific to your romantic relationships, to your relationships with your parents. Your child should not be privy to some of this information because their brain does not know how to handle adult things. So I wanted to add that just in case there's somebody in here who tends to overshare information with children, or thinks, okay, I have an 18-year-old, they're an adult. No, they're not an adult. Their prefrontal cortex is still growing until age 26. There's information you should not give them, unless in cases where a child's life is going to be in harm. Because narcissists will do this triangulation. And that's why it's very hard to co-parent with a narcissist, because they are the ones who like want to turn the child against you. They will tell, because remember, Jacinta said these people are thinking with the brain of a 4-year-old. Their brains did not mature. They may be high functioning. They may be very successful. They will do very well in business and in other things, but relationships, they are completely bankrupt in terms of how to deal with humans, with other humans. So pay attention to the things you tell your children, pay attention to how you protect your children. And narcissists are not only men. We have horrible narcissistic women. So this is not just about men. It tends to be mostly men, but on the flip side, when you have a narcissistic woman, your life is going to be hell on earth. So I want us to also just remember that there are men who are going through narcissistic abuse from women.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yes. And can I just add about the co-parenting or the parenting? People who are highly narcissistic, even the children are flying monkeys, and they will actually give children too much information about the person there because they're very vindictive. So it doesn't matter when they are feeling, again, they don't know how to self-regulate. So when they are feeling narcissistic injury, even the children become the person who hears what their father is doing or what their mother is doing. And sometimes it's straight up lies. I've seen children being told, oh, but your mother sleeps with all kinds of men. This is a 10-year-old, and it's a lie, right? So for the children, they're also a means to an end. And there is no such thing, Angie. Okay, thank you, Angie. The other part I was talking about is there's no such thing as co-parenting with a narcissist. You are a single parent who is trying to manage somebody who is hell-bent on making parenting almost impossible for you. For them, it's about winning. For them, it's about making you like settling scores. So there is no such thing as you're co-parenting with a true narcissist. You are a single parent for all intents and purposes, but the other person is hell-bent on making it impossible for you to parent.
Okay, and I'm just, before you think monkeys is a racist term, it comes from the Wizard of Oz. Yes. If you've watched the play or the movie, or like my children my child was actually a flying monkey in the Wizard of Oz. So in the Wizard of Oz, there's Dorothy with the slippers, the one who's walking and got lost in the forest and all that. Then there's the Wicked Witch of the West. So the Wicked Witch of the West blames Dorothy for the death of her sister. A house fell on the sister. So to attack and kidnap Dorothy, the Wicked Witch of the West sends the flying monkeys. So that's where the term comes from. Yes, the nerd in me had to just put it in there. Okay, let's go.
Can I answer? There's a question here by Viola.
Okay,
there's a couple of questions in the chat, and the question is, how easy / hard is it to help the narcissist or narcissism? Is it learned or inborn? So there is a Dr. Ramani. She's on YouTube. Anybody who wants to know anything about narcissists, go listen to her. She has, like, her entire YouTube is dedicated to narcissism. She's an expert in narcissism. So this is what she says. She says majority of narcissism is learned. And no, you cannot help a narcissist. If you decide that you're going to try and help a narcissist, you are swimming uphill, or I don't know, like even psychiatrists and psychologists are unable to help a narcissist. Because remember, the core of narcissism is a lack of empathy and a focus on others, not a focus on self. And therefore, a narcissist is not willing to even acknowledge that they have an issue or they are causing pain or harm on other people. They do not have the capacity or capability, so you cannot. If you don't get anything else out of this talk today, get the fact that you can never, ever, 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 ever help a narcissist. You cannot heal them. You cannot make them change. You cannot make them see the pain they're causing. You cannot make them see how they're hurting you or anybody else. It doesn't matter whether the narcissist is your mother or your child or your sister. They do not care about how they are showing up or how people experience them. If you're working for a narcissist, please start looking for another job. Look for a way out if you can. They are never, ever, ever going to change. And narcissists in the workplace will ruin your career completely. Yep. Don't even try to fight with HR against a narcissist, because they're incapable and they are so manipulative. Unless you have recordings, you have written chronological things that you can actually prove, you're fighting a losing battle. And I say this from a HR perspective. I am a HR practitioner. I work in HR. Unless you have proof, like serious proof, you're not going to win over a narcissist in any battle. The same way you're not winning with them in a romantic relationship, or if it's your parent, there's absolutely nothing you can say or do to make them see you, understand you, hear you, love you, all the things. You cannot change a narcissist. So do not bother. Narcissists are mostly created. There may be some who are, there might be a genetic component, but there's no research or science to support that. Narcissism is a behavioral deficiency. So many narcissists were either born to narcissist parents. Mm-hmm. So it's a learned behavior. So if your mother or father was a narcissist, this is why it's super important to understand your family of origin, to understand your parents, to look at them as, when you are an adult, look at your parents as human beings, not just as parents. Look at them as human beings with issues just the same way you have issues. Understand who raised them, what was going on in their world, what needs of theirs were not met. it's important for you to understand all that so that you can also acknowledge and protect yourself if you have a narcissist parent. Because also narcissist parent will triangulate the children against the other parent, even if the parents are still married. So you'll find your mom telling you bad things about your dad or vice versa. And sometimes, especially in marriages, for us adult children of parents who are still alive, or even parents who are deceased, your mother or your father may be telling you things about the other parent in an effort to make you feel a certain way, make you stop supporting, make you come to their side and attack the person. It is not your place to be involved in your parents' relationships. They're adults, you're adults. Everybody needs to mind their own business. So I wanted to say that. Then there was a question about from Mons asking whether we are all, what was it? I saw someone say that we all have a narcissistic trait, but we are all not narcissists. Yes. I'll talk about this from a childhood wounding perspective. So most people who have narcissism or who are higher on the spectrum of narcissism did not have caretakers. And this is not just parents, it's the caretakers that took care of you as a child were not solid and consistent. An infant or a child needs consistency. They need to be seen as an individual. They need to be loved unconditionally, regardless of whether they are the colicky baby who cries and makes everybody crazy, or whether they are the calm child that just does not cry. So how a child attaches to the caretakers in childhood, there's the 4 attachment styles, typically will fuel narcissism. So avoidance and disorganized attachment styles, typically, if you look at a narcissist, if they are willing to even get or explore their attachment styles, you will find that they are always avoidant or disorganized, which means they had cruel caretakers. They had caretakers who are narcissistic, maybe. They had caretakers who did not meet their needs. They had caretakers who were not compassionate and present for the child. So the child had to keep morphing into something to adapt to the caretaker versus the caretaker adapting to the child. So that's that. I think I've answered the questions from that perspective. And
yes, and we've covered attachment before. I'm just going to put our YouTube channel, Happy Digging.
And then the thing about narcissists and substance abusers, 99%. Well, let me take that back. Many, according to Dr. Ramani, many narcissists are substance abusers or addicted to something, not necessarily drugs or alcohol. They are addicted to sex, addicted to gambling, addicted to work, addicted to gym, like working out. They are addicted to something because that something is filling up their emptiness, is filling up their lack of self-esteem. Now, whenever the narcissist is discovered, like the ones who actually get diagnosed go to therapists because they're depressed or they have something going on in their relationships and it has been brought to their attention. And then if they actually work on themselves and they discover that they are narcissists and they start doing the work and they start not doing all the things that cover up the narcissism, they tend to be very depressed human beings, and which is what they're trying to mask with the narcissism and the grandiosity and the validation from other people. So it's a very, very, very complex mental health issue, which is why from the beginning we said we are not doing this so that you can just go out there calling people narcissists.
Yes, Jacinta, did you have Joanne covered? So I'm just wondering, do you have anything else to add on that train of thought? Or we can go ahead and do the scapegoat and the golden child, because this is or that's a Joanne field. Okay, I don't know.
I was just going to add that because a lot of people who stay in this without knowing how to distance themselves from a narcissistic person is they tend to think there's something they will do to change the narcissist or to heal the narcissist. That is, I wanted to just echo that. It is impossible. It is impossible. Remember that for a narcissist, manipulation is an expertise. It is something they know. Even if you send them on this off chance that they agree to go to therapy, even the therapist will be manipulated to see things their way. Every information you share, because a lot of times when you're you're dealing with a narcissist, we tend to over-explain ourselves, or we tend to keep on telling them how they are affecting us. When you give them that information, that is they weaponize that. So you can't keep on explaining how they are making you feel, how they are hurting you, because they love that. I'm hurting you, I'm going to actually use that information you just gave me to hurt you even more. So please don't ever think you're going to be able to change a narcissist. They are going to manipulate. I was listening to a lawyer. She was doing an attorney. She's a divorce attorney. She had a YouTube, she was on YouTube on Dr. Ramani's channel, and she was talking about how she sees this play out even in the court system. They would try even to manipulate the court system. So there is really no way you can change a narcissistic person. They will use everything and every tool available to win against you, or to weaponize what they know about you, to keep themselves winning while you're losing. So I just wanted to echo that. There's no way you can change a narcissist. You cannot. Impossible. Yeah.
Okay, Jacinta, I've just thought about it. What about fracturing? I know it's not really a buzzword, but it's would you know about fracturing?
No, I'm not. The fracturing of attachment in childhood?
No, it's still a thing that now. Okay, let me try and put back my Sikukula school fees hat. So a narcissist will make you fracture yourself because of the weaponizing of the information they have. So think of it as a deck of cards. Cards are 52. So you will, when you get into a relationship, you have all your 52 cards. But when you realize this a narcissist weaponizes you, you start hiding the joker, you start hiding all those things. So but at the end of it all, the only thing, because they suck all the energy out of you, you remain, maybe you're only showing the aces of cards. Everything else you've put in your back pocket. They fractured you so much, you're not yourself. You're just a fraction of yourself.
You're a shell. You are a shell of the person who you used to be. Remember, they are insistent and they're intent on breaking you down, shattering you, fracturing you, breaking you apart. So by the time you're with this person for a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, you are a shell of a human being. And most of the people will say, I lost myself. I feel like I want to go back to the days when I used to just have a good time, have a full life, because they break you down piece by piece, very intentionally. So,
and sorry, go ahead, finish your thoughts, Jacinta.
Oh, I was just going to say, add to the fact that for somebody who is a narcissistic person, they are very intentional on looking for the person who is going to be their perfect victim, right? And they always look for the vulnerabilities, which is the highly sensitive person, the disempowered empath, those who consider themselves empaths, but most importantly, those who are highly codependent. There is a book called The Human Magnet Syndrome by Dr. Rosenberg. It is the dance between codependents and narcissists, because narcissistic people actually look very, very much for a codependent, because a person who knows themselves, who loves who they are, who have clarity on who they are not usually like a magnet. They're not attractive to somebody who is looking for somebody they can break down. So usually they look for somebody who is highly codependent, highly disconnected from their authentic self, the people pleaser, the savior, the one who sees the good in everyone, the one with an abundant supply of empathy, the one who is going to dedicate their life trying to save the narcissist from herself or himself.
Yeah, and what I also wanted to say in terms of just to rephrase what Jacinta said, because a lot of times we tend to hear words and think that there's an intentionality, like this person woke up with the intention to. No, these people do not sit and plot to ruin somebody's life. It is narcissism is a coping mechanism to survive an environment. So this child either grew up in a tumultuous home and they learned certain ways of being to manage or to live in that environment. A lot of times it is just instinctive. They are just triggered, and so they are looking. If you are that disempowered empath, you feel in Kiswahili, in Kenyanese, forgive me if you're not from Kenya and you're listening to us, we say you're a person who feels woye for other people. Mm-hmm. That person, you become a target for narcissists because you will feel woye for them. Mm-hmm. So even when you understand that a narcissist was created by a very tumultuous childhood, that does not mean you self-abandon and feel woye for them. You can feel woye for them from afar and remove yourself from the situation. Yeah. You can have empathy and compassion for them and their situation and still have boundaries.
Yes.
You do not have to put up with their shenanigans or their... Narcissism is emotional abuse, and emotional abuse strips you of you. That's why Jacinta is saying most people feel like they lost themselves, because every time you feel woye for this person when they do something terrible, you're chipping a part of you out of you that is supposed to be there to protect you from people like this person.
Yes, and to add to that, I think I always feel like the most important thing to point out when you're dealing with somebody on this NPD or any form of narcissism is the extreme emotional immaturity. So I always, in my class, I tell people, when you think about this person, think of an image, go to Google and print out an image of a 4-year-old who is throwing tantrums and just put it on your refrigerator. When this person is raging, they're manipulating, they're doing what they do, just think you're dealing with somebody who is a 4-year-old in terms of emotional development. Would you be able to have a logical conversation with a 4-year-old? The answer is no. Can a 4-year-old truly mentally, emotionally understand what they are putting you through? The answer is no. So that extreme emotional immaturity, it doesn't matter if the person is 60, it doesn't matter if they're 42, it doesn't matter if they're 24. You are dealing with somebody who developmentally are like a child. This is why they have these extreme narcissistic injuries. They get triggered very easily. They have very thin skin. Not to mention they are very paranoid. They're always paranoid because they know they wrong everybody, so they're always looking over their shoulder because they leave damage and distraction and manipulation and awful stuff everywhere they go. So they are always paranoid. So that extreme immaturity is something you need to understand. And when you're dealing with them, the only way for you to be able to sow distance, because that's the only way you can do that with somebody you cannot cut off, is to understand that when they are raging and they are going into all those tactics or all those extreme ways of coping, you just think of them, okay, let this person over there sit in the corner over there, put them in a corner in your head, and just think of them as a 4-year-old, who cannot pacify themselves, right? So usually you have to actually understand them from that standpoint, so you don't keep on getting pulled back into arguing with them, with explaining to them, diagnosing them, and if you diagnose a narcissist and start telling them you're a malignant narcissist, you're a covert narcissist, by the time they are done with you, you will be believing you're the covert narcissist. You'll be believing you're the malignant narcissist. You will be believing it's you they always have you believing you're the one who is on the wrong.
Okay. The next buzzword, because I want us to now think about the relationships we have in our lives and how they're affected by narcissism. So I want us to go to the parent-child relationship and narcissism. And Joanne, I think this is your foray, and cover the golden child and the scapegoat.
So I need to think about how to frame this, because you've thrown in the children, the buzzwords for children. So the golden child is, for those who don't know, is the child who does no wrong in the eyes of the parents. And then the scapegoat is typically the one that we call the black sheep of the family. Now, are these words or names that are given to the kid by the parent? No, it is unintentional parenting behavior that creates this personality in a child. Typically, the golden child is self-preserving and self-protecting and does not want to get in trouble in the home, because either the parents or the older siblings, because the golden child can be any order, like any birth order. It's basically a self-protective mechanism where if you're a last born and you watched your older siblings being abused by your parents, and I use the word abuse very intentionally because we use violence on children, which is what we call discipline. That is not discipline, that is violence. We use violence on children as a means of correction, right? And therefore, the lastborn may have seen the firstborn or the older children be beaten or whooped, as we call it here in the US, by the parents. And so that child is like automatically never going to do anything wrong because they don't want to be a recipient of the abuse from the parents. They don't want to ever experience that. So they start self-abandoning. And therefore they become the golden child. Why can't you be like Joanne? She does everything she's told. Why can't you be like Joanne? She gets straight A's. Why can't you be like Joanne? She's respectful. That's the child. And then the black sheep of the family is the one who is like, I don't care what is going on here. I am not going to self-abandon. I will stand up for myself. And so this child is forever in trouble with everybody. That is a child who also ends up becoming an alcoholic. That is a child who ends up being on drugs. That is a child who ends up doing things that are not within the family structure because they want to be themselves and they are not in an environment where they can be themselves. So that's how those personalities are usually created. Now, how does that usually translate or become intertwined with narcissism? Or how does narcissism get born into these children? It is typically the child who is the golden child who might end up being narcissistic because they have self-abandoned and their needs are not being met. Their needs are forever not being met, and therefore, and also they are being told in not so many words through action that everything they do is right, is good, and therefore they are never being corrected whenever they do things that are not right, that are unacceptable. They are typically enmeshed with the family, they are typically codependent, they are typically don't have self-esteem because they have been taught to constantly self-abandon to please the parents, to please the education system, to please the boss, to please everybody but themselves. And so for them to mask all that, they tend to be that person who is, see me, can't you see I did this? I am this awesome. I am this and this and this. And it's very unconscious, very, very unconscious. They don't wake up and set out to be arrogant. We tend to call them arrogant. They are arrogant, they are flamboyant, they are all the things. We use these big words on them. A lot of them have learned this behavior in their home of their home of origin. Their parents or their siblings have created this persona, and therefore, because they excel, they tend to excel in a lot of things. They also tend to be those people you meet in corporate who will steal your ideas and run with them as their own and not take responsibility. They do not take personal responsibility for their bad behavior. They can never do wrong. They've never been told by anyone that they are wrong. They were the class prefect. They were the manipulative person in school. They were the head girl or the head boy who was cruel to everybody, but the teachers could not see that this person is harmful. They were maybe your firstborn in your home who was cruel to you, but the parents could not see anything wrong. So that is how it comes up from a childhood perspective.
And since you've touched on the HR bit, twende tu kazini pia.
Twende tu kazini. In what context?
How does narcissism show? How does narcissism show up at the workplace?
It shows up the same way where you are being. So a narcissist leader will make you work, do things that are not within. It's a very slippery slope. Let me just first put that into context. It's a slippery slope because it's not as easy as noticing it in a relationship, in a romantic or platonic relationship, because at work there's many people, there are rules and regulations, there are standard operating procedures of your department or whatever it is you do. However, a narcissist will tend to make you work more than you should, tend to blame you for mistakes that are not yours, tend to not take responsibility for the things they have done wrong. They will triangulate, make your co-workers, the same way Jacinta was explaining that a narcissist will get your friends, the flying monkey thing, right? They'll get your friends and your family to go against you. They will do that in the office as well. They will totally disrupt team dynamics. Thank you, Jacinta. They will put you on performance improvement things because when you stand up for yourself, when you refuse to do certain things that are outside of protocol, then they will use that against you. They will ask you to work weekends and nights. They will just do things that are completely off, that make things very difficult. Your workplace becomes a hostile work environment. If you find yourself having to think about what you have to say in a meeting, why you have to say it, how you have to say it, do you need to write everything so that you can protect yourself? Maybe you're working with a narcissist coworker or a narcissist boss. Now, the slippery slope comes in where there are some people who are just truly lazy and don't want to work, and then they want to call the boss a narcissist. That's not what we're talking about. The same way, if your partner is just an avoidant or a disorganized attachment style, and they are not capable of meeting your needy or your secure self, your needs for your relationship, your partner is not necessarily a narcissist. Also, if you are a person who does not like feedback and does not like taking personal responsibility, everybody around you is not a narcissist, because we tend to call people narcissists when we do not want to take personal responsibility for our own bullshit, for the lack of better words.
It's Sunday, Joanne. It's Sunday. We don't bullshit. We bullshit. Okay, Jacinta, let's go to you, our relationship person. So how does it show up? And okay, this is me in my head, Panga, in this question. Is there like a narcissist, is there a meter? Like how do I, is there like a checklist so that, okay, thank God I'm married, so that my children cannot fall into this, or if my children are narcissistic, someone doesn't get to marry them. I'm just wondering, is there like something that you can sniff out?
Yeah, so I think with this tendency, with this narcissistic tendencies, by the way, I was listening to Dr. Ramani a while back, and she was saying a lot of narcissists are also children of narcissists, or children of narcissists end up with narcissists because it brings a familiarity to them, right? So if you had a highly narcissistic mom or a highly narcissistic dad, when you go and meet somebody who is narcissistic and you're dating them, there's an element of them that brings you your childhood familiarity. So you're not like consciously thinking, oh, this person is, I'm attracted to them because of such and such. You're attracted to them because, on an unconscious level, you are attracted to them because they are bringing you that familiarity of your childhood dynamic. But to answer your question, it's that most of these things are apparent from the very from the onset of dating. Within a few dating like a few dates, you actually notice the extreme love bombing, the extreme focus on self, the talking big. Most of the time they're talking very big, and over time you start to realize, this was BS. So like the malignant ones, or the more overt narcissists, they talk big, they know everyone, they talk about how successful they are in the workplace or in their business. They tend to know every celebrity out there, every person who is anybody, they know them. So they talk a big game, but over time you start realizing things are not ending up, right? But in our compassion, we haven't really been taught on what to look out for, or the things to look at when we are dating. So vetting of partners is not something anybody in our upbringing or in our formal schooling, that's not something we were taught, right? But there is, and your intuition would tell you from the onset something is off, but then you're being gaslighted, or you grew up being gaslighted not to trust your intuition or what you're feeling or what your body compass is telling you. So usually you end up gaslighting yourself to ignore these so-called, I guess we call them red flags now. You end up gaslighting yourself into not believing what your intuition is telling you and to ignore the red flags. But usually, everything in you will tell you something is off. Now, when you are in a relationship, now you are cohabitating, or the relationship is a few months old, you will constantly question. You will constantly have questions, right? And you will find yourself late at night doing Google searches, trying to understand somebody's behavior. You are going to constantly feel something is off. If you're living with them now, it's full on. The person you're living with under the same roof, and the person who goes to your mom and dad's for Christmas or for Sunday dinner is a different individual than the one who gets into the car and drives home with you. As a matter of fact, it always feels like you're dealing with two personalities, the public personality and the private personality. And it's so disorienting, and you feel like, and you feel like nobody actually believes you, because the person that they experience externally is very different from the person you're experiencing. So you can't really go to your friends, your family members and say, hey, I am living hell in my private space, because they don't see that. So you are actually very lonely and very alone. And people don't tend to believe you, because what you're experiencing and what they see are two different things. This is why therapy, and not dragging the partner to therapy, this is why you going into seeking therapy for yourself from somebody who understands what, a therapist who understands what narcissism is, or a mental health professional. It helps you so that you can, first of all, start understanding that you're not crazy. You're actually living this hell, right? But going about it with over-explaining yourself, doing more to get this person to change, waiting around for them to eventually see how much you have suffered for them, that's the wrong approach. You're going to die a slow, emotional, spiritual death, if not physical death, waiting for them to change. But it's important for you to understand that what you're dealing with it's the only way for you to get yourself out of it is to actually leave. But a lot of times it's not as easy. It's not as easy as just packing up and leave. And some of them, narcissistic people, are also physically abusive. So you can, and it's leaving requires like moving with wisdom and in silence. Does that make sense? Move with wisdom and silence. Don't go broadcasting what you are. Remember, there are flying monkeys all around you, right? So it requires you almost going to a neutral, a space, or a support system that is unknown to everybody else around you.
Can I piggyback on what Jacinta just said from a relational perspective? And this is romantic relationships or friendships.
Yeah.
Platonic friendships, because narcissistic people are very good at quickly attaching to you so fast. If you're unaware, you can be pulled into their world so quickly without noticing. So this is for all of us on the outside of a person. If you're friends, if it's your sister, if it's your brother, if you notice that somebody who is in your life is changing very quickly and retreating and not being who they were because a new person has entered their life, start really paying attention. Because narcissists have a tendency, like Jacinta said earlier on, of isolating you from your loved ones.
Mhm.
And so, especially where romantic relationships are concerned, let's all give ourselves permission to receive feedback from our loved ones when they tell us we have changed. Like, for example, if I am dating somebody and Jacinta is my good friend, we always hang out, we always do these things, and all of a sudden I'm not available. I can't talk to Jacinta on the phone. I can't go out with her. I can't do this because this dude is just taking all my time or my everything. I'm not, if your coworker used to be the person you go out with, you have fun with, and all of a sudden they are not doing any of those things. Listen, tell them that you've noticed that they are not showing up the way they used to. And then if you're the person who's being told you're not showing up the way you used to, sit and evaluate this new relationship that you're in, because you might be dealing with a narcissist. And as soon as the people around you start noticing and somebody is brave enough to tell you you have changed, pay attention, because that is something, it's not necessarily telling you to stop being with this person. It is more for you to notice, are you self-abandoning? Have you stopped loving the things that you used to love? Have you changed the way that you used to be? A person is not jealous that you've gotten a man. Let's stop lying to ourselves that your girlfriends are telling you that you have changed because they're single and now you have a man, you've changed. No. Typically, people just don't have the words to tell you that they miss you. They miss hanging out with you, and you're no longer giving them the attention or the time that you used to. And we understand life changes, but if you're forever unavailable to everybody, including your family, because of a single person, there is a problem. There is a problem that needs to be addressed, and you need to be open to look at your life and to look at yourself and see, why is it that you're not doing the things that you have always done before, now that you have this person in your life? I just wanted to preface that real quick.
And let me add to that, is that at the beginning of such a relationship, you will find yourself losing yourself in that relationship. And unfortunately, for most of the people, when that feedback is coming your way, they will go and tell now the person they are in a relationship with that, oh, my friend said X and XXXY, which actually that information is going to be weaponized and is going to be used to isolate you even further. So most of the time with this love bombing situations where you've lost yourself, you're immersed yourself into or cloned yourself into this person, you cut your friends off, his friends become, or her friends become your friends, you have isolated yourself or you've been isolated. Most of the time when people give you well-meaning feedback, we run and go tell the very person who is isolating us. And now that weapon. You've given them the weapon to pull you even further away from the people who are supposed to be your safe space or your help you see your blind spots, or the people who are seeing what you might not be seeing because you're in this vortex that you've been sucked into.
And I also see it a lot in platonic relationships in women to women platonic relationships. When a narcissistic person comes into your life as a woman, in your group of friends, there will be discord. People will start noticing that you are pulling away. You are no longer available. There is unprecedented jealousy over how Joanne is relating to Posa versus Jacinta. It is, and we tend to say we are behaving like middle schoolers, right? which is what, adolescence, right? That jealousy that happens there with as one specific person. It's usually not the entire group. It's one person who has issues with how you're relating with the rest of your friends, has jealousy about you going out with your different group of friends and not including them. Be watchful and be aware. I'm not saying it's always a narcissist, but that might be somebody with very high narcissistic tendencies, because these narcissists want you to themselves and do not want to share you with anybody else, not your family, not your friends, not your children, nobody.
Yes, and the thing is to remember is that for the most part, people with narcissistic tendencies are starved, emotionally starved, and they're also starved for admiration and attention. So whatever means necessary, they will, if it means disrupting the whole group dynamics, disrupting all your friendships, they will do that. And when they walk into your friend group, you will know, because everything is chaotic after that. It constantly feels like the group dynamic that was cohesive, you used to have fun. All of a sudden, this person has walked in, and you are there's a divide and conquer and the triangulation taking place, and it just feels like the dynamic is no longer the same. The friend group changes. And if you sit back, you notice it changed when that person walked into the group.
And if they're a covert narcissist, which is very, the covert narcissist can just literally make you lose your mind, because they show up as a person who, they're not the grandiose, and they tend to be a victim, right? They're a victim of everything. I am so amazing, but nobody's noticing. I am so this, but nobody's noticing. So they guilt you. They guilt you with manipulation to see them, and therefore you're forever exhausted of here. Like, no solution to any problem ever works for them. So they're constantly in victim mode. So if you have a person who is constantly a victim, maybe they're a covert narcissist and they don't know, and you don't know. And they're very exhausting.
Yes, very exhausting. And we've already talked about the manipulation. Let's not talk about the nagging that they do. You know, nagging is when people use, they want to insult you and affect yourself, the way you see yourself or your self-esteem. So they will use an insult that is wrapped up as a compliment, that is meant to just make you feel bad about yourself. Narcissistic people are extremely good at nagging, and the word nagging just comes from negative feedback. So they may insult you and wrap it up as a compliment, or they may insult you and wrap it up as constructive criticism. That happens a lot with women friendships. Yeah.
Okay, so let's go to the other group that we fear touching. That's the spiritual leaders. Saya, yes, it just seems I've seen your face.
Saya comes in. Let me just add this, because Joanne touched on this. The reason why narcissists tend to gravitate through to politics, to being Hollywood people, to being pastors, again, they thrive from being adored, being admired, being the person that everybody looks up to. And who better? Who gets more attention than a political figure? Who gets more attention than like, I was listening to the Red Table Talk, and they were talking about, Dr. Ramani was on it, and she was talking about Hollywood is full of them. Church leaders, because they have people who are admiring them, telling them how great they are. They thrive from that attention and that admiration that they get. This is why they tend to gravitate towards those areas.
Okay, Saya, you have to put your video on so that I know you're here. Oh, thank you. So
They are
yes,
the most egotistical humans on the face of earth.
Yes.
Sam, utajitetea ukikuwa wapi? And by the way, if you want, touch that verse pisses me off. Oh my gosh, especially because it's taken out of context. So, and I know there's a Netflix docu-series. I was corrected by my son the other day on how to be a cult leader. I was watching the Jim Jones one, and I was like, my goodness, this is how, this is just a narcissist. But just talk about the narcissism and spiritual leaders. And this is, it just doesn't touch Christianity alone, because there's everyone from gurus to yoga leaders to your Ravi Zacharias and all those. Just talk about it.
So, when you normally ask me to speak about all religions, the key challenge is this: religions are inherently different and superficially similar, not the other way around. Most people think religions are inherently similar and superficially different, but it's actually the other way around. So what might be true about Buddhism may be completely different from what is true with, say, Islam or Christianity. So with that disclaimer out of the way, it is true that because man is, at least in the Christian tradition, because man is made in the image of God, there is to be found in every man that which speaks of the divine, the creative, the beautiful, the nice. But then also because the same Christian tenet teaches that because all human beings are fallen, there's to be found in every human being, and by extension, every culture, that which is flawed, broken, ugly, and at times just downright demonic. And because the rules of science don't normally apply to many categories of faith, it becomes, and not just saying, and this is not to say that faith is unthinking or blind trust. No, it's just, it's a different sphere, as it were. What it has ended up doing is that it has lended itself to, as a safe home, as a safe passage for many individuals who in other circles would be either diagnosed or restrained. There's more accommodation, there's more expression of both the great and the genius, but also of the flawed and the broken. Now, by nature, most faith circles, whichever faith it is, whether it's Hinduism, Buddhism, Shintoism, Christianity, are premised on trust and are also premised on the idea of support. Those communities, they tend to support, at least for those who belong, get to be supported. Because of the lower bar of trust and the greater community of support, a lot of what we today are unpacking as narcissism can very easily find home and refuge there. Individuals that you would think twice or thrice, before trusting or engaging with outside of the community of faith become more easy to trust and then engage with within the community of faith. Now, within the Christian spectrum, we believe in something called conversion, which is not something that happens overnight. It's the changes over some period of time. So it means the wounds individuals have come with attachment, broken, wrong attachment styles that they have gotten from whichever space. When they come into whichever community of faith, even including Christianity, they still gain expression. Case in point is, there's a guy whose dominant sin prior to an encounter with Jesus was womanizing. That was his dominant sin. And of course, coming into the Christian faith, he realizes that he has to give this up. But what he ended up becoming was somebody who was very domineering in meetings, domineering in places. And it took somebody outside to observe that what really had initially manifested as womanizing was his narcissistic nature. He had a very weak ego, and every time he dominated a woman before his encounter with Christ, it helped fill that hole. And when he came to Christ, in what he thought was conversion, what he just did was he substituted his tendency or inclination to dominate women. He wanted now to dominate committees. He wanted to dominate other people. He wanted to dominate ideas. He wanted to dominate discussion. So in the Christian sense, we, of course, would celebrate that, okay, this guy has been able to overcome womanizing, but we then don't quickly realize that, no, wait, womanizing was the manifestation of something deeper. I'm just using that as an example. But of course, this individual was then helped to begin seeing that there is a Christian way of doing stuff. Does narcissism happen within communities of faith? Absolutely, it does. And you see it a lot in gatekeeping. I think some of the most heavily gatekept institutions are religious ones. Part of it is out of necessity. You don't want every wind of doctrine or every novel idea of the Bible to just come through unfiltered or unquestioned. So there needs to be checks and balances. There also needs to be some gatekeeping within communities of faith, because there are vulnerable groups there are children and what have you. So there's that healthy bit. But however, now narcissists they use the need for gatekeeping within communities of faith like churches, and now take it to extend or enlarge totalitarian power. It is exacerbated where individuals don't take time to read the books of doctrine, or when the books of doctrine, the source doctrine material, is written by the leader. The latter case would be what we call an outright cult, where Sire is the one who builds the rules, comes up with the books of doctrine, comes up with the source material, and is king and rule over that. Sire would be an outright cult leader. But in places like, say, Christianity or Islam or Hinduism, where there are source doctrine, whether it's the Gita or the Quran or the Bible, how narcissists do it is they undermine the open reading of the books, the source books of doctrine, or they undermine the interpretation other individuals give by words like, oh, we are the trained ones, you are not trained, or you don't understand the original languages. In the original languages, it means A, B, C, D. And so systematically what they end up doing is they make the congregations doubt their own capacity to engage with scripture. And at the same time, they make the congregations then dependent on narcissist pastor or elder or deacon or Mama Guild XYZ to be the ultimate interpreter of doctrine. And history has borne us to the fact that when that becomes the normative way of doing church or doing Islam, the end results are really not pleasant at the end of the day. Also, and this one is going to be touchy-feely, in many communities of faith, I would speak to Christianity and to a good degree Islam, there has been over some time a failure to attract the smartest brains, like book smart, school smart, like the A material, the top class, to become the priests or the imams. I'm not saying this is always the case, but if you just look very carefully, many of the pastors or the imams are not the guys who got your A's. In fact, in many places, the A students are not jumping up and down at the release of KCSE and saying, being asked, what do you want to be? And say, I want to be a pastor. No, they want to be astronauts or astrophysicists or computer engineers and stuff. And in many places, it's the guys who did not do too well in school who end up then ascending to these positions. Now that produces a fertile ground for narcissistic behavior, this being the reasons. Number one, when you carefully read whichever books of doctrine, theology is a very robust science. It's a very, and here I'm using theology to mean the study of a deity. So Islamic theology, Christian theology. So theology is very robust. And if you do not have the mental wherewithal to study it properly, it can either become very confusing, very overwhelming, or if you're already walking into the school with the idea that your esteem is not intact because your grades are not what they were meant to be, the additional challenge that theology will give you will massacre whichever small esteem you do have, one. And therefore, number two, individuals who've gone through this system, and it's very hard to adjudicate calling. When somebody says they have a calling and they're able to go through schooling, none of you asks your pastors, like, what did you score in school before you stand and preach? Because callings are not adjudicated that way. But you see, callings are carried by individuals with weaknesses. So imagine I didn't score well in school. I've gone through theology. It's done a number on me. I'm coming into a congregation where the A students, the B students who you will left to go into banking or engineering or surgery or whatever are my audience. I'm already coming with a significant amount of esteem problems. And therefore, when individuals like this come and therefore assume this leadership, going back to where I started, in a space where the surgeon is willing to lay their guard a bit lower within the community of faith and be a bit more trusting that they would be in the surgery room. And now they have to be led by this individual who's coming in with quite an amount of weakness and stuff. And speaking to members who then believe that for some reason, this individual in front of them has a bigger connection to the divine. In the streets, we say, you don't get high on your own stash. Some of the leaders, unfortunately, now become high on their own stash. They want to believe that they are something. They want to believe that they matter, at least at a completely human level. And now the power of the pulpit and the power of the audience and the power of being the gatekeepers, the powers of being interpreters of doctrine handed into such an individual either exacerbates a pre-existing salient or quiet narcissism, or could easily end up creating one where it did not exist. Now, all of this does not speak necessarily ill of religion. What it just says is that religion, and at this point I'm speaking about Christianity, it just says Christianity draws from the pool of human beings, and in the case of Christianity, it attests to the fallenness and the flawedness of all human beings. However, at this point is where that initial disclaimer I said comes in place. I'm not able to speak authoritatively from the Gita or the Quran, but I'm able to speak with some amount of familiarity with scripture, is that every symptom put forward about narcissism today is spoken against in scripture. Scripture speaks about things like think highly of others, and do not load yourself over others. And it says on the counsel of many make war. The Bible is replete with safeguards, rebukes, instruction to individuals who are either struggling with narcissistic behavior. And one of the brilliant things, at least for me, the Bible does to the narcissist is in painting human history over a 1500-year period and using different cadres of writers, from farmers to military generals and individuals drawn from different races, and women are writers in the Bible as well as men. What the Bible does is a brilliant work of portraying that even our best of best heroes are flawed, and that outside of a dependence on God, ultimately human nature is limited. If for nothing else, this is usually a good pushback against the otherwise normal human tendency to want to generate your ultimate sense of worth from loading it over others. And the scriptural tenets of what we call the gospel, the three things about being justified in Christ, being reconciled in Christ, and being, big word, repudiated. In other words, being fully, your guilt has been fully reimbursed in Christ. Those three things are very good panacea against narcissism, because it means ultimately, at least in the Christian tradition, the identity that really matters is not earned, it is given. It is not based on our performance, but it is based on Christ has performed. And it does not mean that when I fail, I am finished. It means when I'm failed, I'm able to be given a second chance. If for nothing else, those three ideas, which are central to the gospel idea of what was done in Christ, are not only strong rebukes against narcissism, but they are also strong panacea against the same. But in simple English, does narcissism exist within communities of faith and even propagated by its leaders, or at times even enabled by the members? Yes, it does. Does this speak evil or wrong about Christianity or other religions? Not necessarily. It just says these are products of the culture and of the flows of human nature. Does the scripture speak against narcissism and give alternatives both at an intellectual and a practical level? Yes, it does. Back to you, Paul.
I just want you to touch on, so is it the reason why churches that are church planters and their churches end up being problematic, and once the church planter dies, the church dies with them? Is it the reason?
It's you're working on a wrong premise, a badly planted church, because there are well-planted churches that put together systems that embed in the community, that celebrate people's giftings and talents and do exceptionally well. You know, we have examples from the time of missionaries to Africa, and even modern times when Africans themselves are beginning churches. There are many examples of congregations that are able to outlive. One that just comes to mind is this big Nigerian church called, I was watching actually the documentary. It's been able to outlive its founding pastor. He's died, but it's really grown. It has universities and everything. But yes, poorly planted churches where the strong figure is the strong man is the person at the core, those ones will fold, because if the founder is the alpha and the omega, when he dies, it unfolds. It's true in military, it's true in business, it's true in churches that are wrongly or poorly planted.
So let me ask this question that I have been asked, and you may attend. Is narcissism a problem in our individualistic societies, or before we left the Congo or followed the Nile, did we have narcissistic, our great ancestors, were they narcissistic, or it's something that came in modernity?
How else would we have warriors? You know, the answer to that is like, how else would we have, you know, the warriors of renown, whether it's the Luanda Mageres or the medicine men, the Okoyots and the Oloibons and everything. These guys had a measure of narcissism. When you look at our things that made us move and begin moving, one of it was conflict, okay? And everything described so far about narcissism has the hallmarks of creating, maintaining, generating, spreading a lot of conflict, as it were. And you then don't also, subsequently after that, you don't need to look too far. Just look at Shaka's behavior. Look at Shaka. Shaka's behavior is the penultimate, narcissist. And this is, Shaka is so violent that there's a whole tribe in Tanzania, that has its origins. The Nguni people come from South Africa. They move all the way and are now Tanzanians because of Shaka's narcissism and violence. But you see, Shaka's violence was not considered abnormal. That's the way empires were extended and everything. When you read the Mwene Mutapa Empire, if you didn't come, the Karanga Shona Empire, if you didn't come crawling on your belly or wear certain clothes, you couldn't appear before the king and stuff. So narcissism is not an individualistic society problem. It's been with us from, it's human nature. It's been with us from, whether you think of Toedros or Rabi Pasha, or all of those guys had a measure of narcissism within them.
I'm just thinking of the choosing of Queen Esther.
Posa, just
Yes,
to
go ahead, Joanne.
add to that, from a current day perspective, one thing we did not talk about is how we are also creating narcissism in the culture we live in today with social media and things. So a person who was not raised in a tumultuous environment may have been raised by healthy parents. Everything was good in childhood. But then here comes the quote unquote influencer era, where the person is like completely self-absorbed and does not care how their behavior affects other people. They will do the most uncouth and unhealthy things to get followers, to be a certain person, which is harmful to themselves and they don't know, but also harmful to their community in general. We are creating narcissism with the culture we live in today. So that's another element that is not being talked about, that's creating this self-absorbency and self-importance that is narcissistic in nature.
Just a perfect rider for that on religion is, I remember there've been one or two ministries, dominant ministries in the world. One is called Praise the Lord, that have been caught in significant scandal. And in retrospect, when one of the people in the Praise the Lord ministry, it was a huge, way before the modern televangelist, like PTL was huge. It was big business. And their leaders were got into all manner of financial and sexual misappropriation. And what Joanna said is perfect, because they said, I remember them saying, I sat there and saw mere men standing behind once they stood in front of the camera and it was turned on, they soon became, and we turned them into small gods. And there was suddenly no more time for prayer or Bible study or meditation, but it was just moving from the show to the next show, because the show had to keep going. So it's true that this the multiplication of cameras and people who want to consume what comes from the cameras, whether it's within faith circles or within just your normal everyday circle, has and is accelerating the rate at which we are creating an exceedingly selfish breed of individuals. And of course, narcissism is a more recent word. The word that scripture would use to express this is about selfishness. It's about self-thought. It's about being self-conceited. All those are variants of the same. But yeah, power to you, Joanne. Good one.
And when you think about just growing, because all of us here have pages, right? For us to grow our pages, if you don't put your image, Joanne, Jacinta, or ourselves on your Facebook, you will not get followers. You will not. As in, you can write a nice thesis and put it there, so long as it doesn't have you in your narcissistic self showing off something or the. It's a thing. It's a fact. And
it really is, and it's sad. It's very sad because for those of us doing certain work like coaching, and Jacinta can probably attest to this. Even for us, like Jacinta and I are in this space doing this work. I may use a quote to pass a message to my audience. And if I was a person who does not know myself, who is not content with myself, who is not okay with what I'm putting out there, I would constantly compare myself with Jacinta, who uses pictures of herself that are beautiful and everything, and they attract a huge following because people are attracted to the picture and the person, and they're not necessarily reading what is being said under the picture, right? So if you look at social media platforms for people who have grown organically or who are trying to grow organically, it is a very slippery slope. There are those who will follow you because they actually like what you're putting out there. And then there are those who are attracted to the essence of the images that you put out there, right? So it can be a very self-serving environment if you don't know yourself and if you're not aware of who you are and what image or what you're trying to do in social media.
Yeah, that is true. And as Posa said, the way social media algorithms are set up is that anytime you write, for those of us who are doing content and growing our business and whatever, anytime there is an image attached to your posts, the algorithm serves it to more people. So the video is up, a video is up here, then any picture with a face on it, and then any like a graphic, and then if it's just text, it's like the graveyard of social media. So people don't necessarily, the algorithm doesn't serve that particular post to as many of your audience, because not every person who is your friend on Facebook or who is a follower is going to see everything you're posting. It's at most 10% of your followers. But so if you want the algorithm to prioritize your content, you have to have a picture attached to it, or a video, or yeah. But if you're not self-aware and you're just doing it just for likes and to pump your ego or to feel good about yourself, then you're on the wrong path, right? Then you're now veering towards the unhealthy narcissism, where you're looking for you're posting this stuff not so much to do the work you're doing, but to get likes and attention and validation and to be told how good you look.
Yeah, and I think we covered that on the sharenting video. Again, subscribe, like, and you will see. Okay, so oh my God, hey, okay, let's just let's tidy this up. So, what is the impact of, as in we've talked about the narcissism? What is the impact, and what shall we do to bulletproof ourselves from all this? And then I think after that, tufunge kitu. Kenyans must eat on both ends. Must brunch or lunch and dinner and sleep. And we can start with anyone. Jacinta, because you're on, go ahead.
I think the most important is to know yourself, to have a clear understanding of who you are, to truly love who you are, because if you don't know who you are, and you don't love who you are going to go out in life as a victim of your circumstances or of the world, and you are going to attract people that treat you like prey, right? So the first part is to really have a clear understanding of who you are, have solid boundaries, know how you want to be treated, and number two, take time to understand what healthy relationships look like. And healthy relationship starts with a healthy self. So I think it comes back to us looking inward and working on being healthy individuals, so that we are modeling to other people how we desire to be treated, what our boundaries are, and we are not looking for that validation or that love to come from external places. So it really, for me, it's all about starting from within. Solidity from within, loving who you are, having clarity on how you want to be treated, having solid boundaries, and so that your external relationships, you're calling in relationships that actually honor that and cherish that and treat you as such.
Joanne, I was supposed to sing Joan. Joanne.
I would say everything that Jacinta said, but more importantly, trust your intuition. Knowing yourself means knowing how you feel, why you're feeling the way you're feeling, where you're feeling what you're feeling, because our emotions are, or whatever, our intuition, our bodies are so wise. We are born with a wisdom from infancy that tells us what to do when our needs are not being met, when there is trouble. We have that instinct born in us. And then it's beaten out of us. It is manipulated out of us by parents or caretakers or school systems or religious systems or cultural systems. Work on rediscovering who you truly are, rediscovering what you like, what you don't like. Having boundaries with even yourself, not just because healthy boundaries start with knowing yourself well enough to know, I am doing something that I should not be doing, something that is not good for me, whether it's eating food, whether it's drinking alcohol, doing drugs, whatever the thing is. I am doing this to numb an emotion that I have been taught not to feel, right? So emotional intelligence is super, super, super crucial. So asking yourself consistently, how am I feeling? Why am I feeling this way? Where in my body am I feeling this way? Because a narcissist will trigger an emotion in you. And that emotion is not going to be here in your head. It is going to be neck down. It is going to be a sensation in your body, neck down. Typically, it's from your throat to your stomach. So you will feel either a racing heartbeat, you will have an upset stomach, you will have sweat, whatever it is. Our bodies are very different. So understand what your body is telling you. If you go to a place or if you interact with a person, and in the back of your mind, you tell yourself something was off, explore what that something is. Don't gaslight yourself into thinking, oh, I'm overthinking or I'm creating something that does not exist. More than likely, you have the instinct and the intuition to sniff out these people, but that was beaten out of you in childhood. So do that. But also give yourself permission to go see a therapist. Give yourself permission to see a coach. Educate yourself. Educate yourself beyond the buzzwords. If you're in a church community, read your doctrine yourself and understand it yourself. You are smart. You don't need a person to tell you how to be. You have that inner wisdom. Use it. Don't do things that your whole system is screaming no, because we tend to, you've been invited to a party, your whole system is like, no, I'm not going, I shouldn't go. And then you're like, oh, but then you have this inner conversation with yourself. If I don't go, this is going to happen, blah, blah. If your first instinct is no, stick to the no. There is no way you're going to honor yourself without disappointing other people. Be okay with disappointing other people, and how they feel about you disappointing them is none of your business. Each person needs to own their own emotions, their own behaviors, their own everything. And then when it comes to narcissists, there is no, I'm going to say again and again, if you got nothing out of this, there is no changing a narcissist. There is no rescuing a narcissist. There is no way you can make them see that they are hurting you or hurting others. Exit that relationship, remove yourself from that relationship, set very solid boundaries with a narcissist. Do not engage, do not feel sorry, do not. And if you have questions, again, Posa has posted Dr. Ramni. She has a very good video about setting boundaries with narcissists. Because there are those instances where you're co-parenting with a narcissist. The systems, wherever our systems and cultures do not focus on the narcissist. They focus on the child. And they say the child needs both parents, regardless of whether one parent is a narcissist, regardless of whether the parent is batshit crazy and causing harm to the child. The systems may say the child needs both parents. You might have lost custody of your children to the narcissist because they manipulated the system. Because that is what they do. That is what they're good at. So you have to make peace sometimes with the loss that you have lost to a narcissist, whether it's your children, whether it's your property, whether it's material things. Sometimes it's better to just exit and leave the narcissist to their own vices and then build yourself again. And that is easier said than done, but it is the best way for you because they will drag you to hell and back.
100.
A narcissist is going to use all their resources to get everything that you own, especially in a divorce. They will drag you through the mud and make your life miserable. Sometimes you just have to cut your losses and call it a day and start afresh.
100. Can I just add to what Joanne said about the emotional component of this? It is that, again, in many cases, these are people you have to put up with on some level if you have children together or they are a family member. And this is where now coaching and therapy and treatment comes in, is you have to learn the art of emotional regulation, because they will have you dysregulated 24/7. You will feel like your nervous system has been hijacked at all times, and that is done with intention, and it can make you struggle with a lot of anxiety. So learning how to regulate your nervous system is crucial, because otherwise, if you don't know how to do that, you're going to constantly be reactive to their tactics, to their antics. I once read somewhere that narcissists demand that you give up everything in order to become their nothing, right? So understanding that will help you now just make the right choices for yourself, how to distance with them, yourself from them, even if they are a part of your family that you cannot completely block and never see them. But knowing how to emotionally distance yourself from their shenanigans and to regulate your nervous system when it's been hijacked by them, it will help you be able to actually get through that particular moment with them.
Okay, this is a time, if you have a question you want to ask, you can unmute yourself and ask. Otherwise, I will invite Saya to close the Kufunga Kituo. But if you have a question, ask, especially these ones who are typing that's Joanne. I was like, who is typing such a long question? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, if there's no question, Saya, I invite you, and then we usually leave the door open for, we leave the online portion and give Nyuma Attend like 5 minutes for those who want to ask a question that they don't want to make it to the interwebs, happen to tunaenda Nyuma Attend. But let me invite Saya to close. And Jacinta and Joanne, wait, you always have something going on. Is there an open course?
I have actually from this coming Friday, I have the Elevated African Woman Conference with my friend Tabitha. We are having a 6-day class that is all about how to make sure that to have balance and success between your career and your relationships, how you can have both without having to give up one over the other. The component of the class that I'm teaching is heavy on relationships, first with relationship itself and relationship, intimate relationships. So that starts on next Friday, and the registration deadline is August 1st, and it's only $59, but we have an entire week of a class that I'm co-teaching with my friend Tabitha Jerry, who is a career acceleration expert. She helps women thrive in the workplace and make strides and make the progress and the elevation that they need in the workplace. So I can put the link on there. Let me look for it.
How they can get in touch with you. And Tabitha is a vibe. She's a whole vibe. If you're ignoring Jacinta here, Tabitha is a whole vibe.
Yes, yes.
I will say to all of you, hear me please. If you have not signed, like these two women, and they are my friends, and I'm not saying this just because they're my friends. I've known them for a long time. Outside of that, they are excellent in what they do. And this particular 5-day session will answer a lot of your questions in terms of relationships and work. All of us are working somewhere, maybe, or trying to work somewhere, or have worked somewhere, or have children who are trying to get jobs somewhere. $59 or how much is that in Kenya shillings right now? The shilling, I mean, the dollar is so high and it's hard, I understand. But if nothing else, if you can afford, please, 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 please invest in yourself for this 5-day session.
Absolutely. And thank you, Joanne, and thank you for those kind words. And, you know, I absolutely love and adore the work that you're doing. It's much, much, much needed. And I think this work that coaches are doing and people like Posa and Saya are doing, these are conversations that are really necessary and that we need to start normalizing and having these open conversations, open dialogue, authentic dialogue, Saya. These are much needed conversations in our community. And let me just add that one of the lessons that Tabitha is going to be teaching is how to navigate these workplace conflicts and this workplace toxicity, how to navigate through that. Because again, these people who have these unhealthy behaviors or ways of dealing with people, they're not just in our homes, they still wake up and go to work as somebody's boss, as somebody's colleague, as somebody you have to put up with. So one of the lessons is actually going to be on that. So if you can, please join the conference.
Okay, funga kituo. Let me share. I think you also have something. Nyinyi wote mnafunza watu, it seems.
Yeah, so for me, I have basically, oh, sorry. Is this somebody's?
No, that's up. Saya is also funzaing, but go ahead, Joanne.
Okay, so I've posted the link to where you can find me in the chat. It takes you to all my social media and my website. I offer a 12-week inner child class that basically helps people identify all these things we are talking about. It helps you understand your family of origin. It helps you understand yourself and why you show up the way you show up today. And it gives you tools to help manage all the things that you possibly need to manage, whether it's relationships, whether it's work, whether it's parenting. And then I also offer a boundaries class to help with boundaries, because that is the one thing we really, really struggle with. So you can click on those links and find me there. I also just post random things that are helpful on social media to help the people who follow me work on themselves, because I understand that our classes are not necessarily affordable to everybody. However, if you can afford to spend 50,000 Kenya shillings in one night in a bar in Nairobi, you can afford a coach. You can afford a therapist. You can afford a doctor. So a lot of times we say it is too expensive. So I challenge you, is it too expensive or is it not your priority? Ni hayo tu kwa leo.
Sawa sawa. Asa umefikiwa?
Okay, so first for today's topic, I'm usually dragged in as a spiritual guy. The ultimate human problem is, from the Christian lens, is the attempt to save yourself, is the attempt to save oneself. And in that bid to save oneself, we turn to wrong things to save ourselves. So we turn to our esteem, we turn to our looks, we turn to the amount of power we can manifest on others. And the Christian doctrine, therefore, of salvation isn't just about being rescued from earth and ultimately being taken to heaven. It's about being offered a savior who, when we fail, he can truly forgive. When we are broken, he can genuinely fix. And when we are dissatisfied, he can give us sources of satisfaction that truly don't leave us hungry at the end of the day. Because what you really see and realize in narcissism, why it has to perpetuate, is because people look for satisfaction from things that leave them dissatisfied. They look for fulfillment in things that still leave them empty. And so ultimately, you need, and they look for forgiveness in things that cannot truly forgive them. So the overarching, I just throwing the spiritual lens to today's discussion is that. So once again, thank you, the two J's, Joanne and Jacinta, for your time, for explaining buzzwords. Yes, it's true. The two organizers, Posa and myself, had resisted this narcissism because we felt it was a workhorse, it was a buzzwords and everything. And for what we do, we are not just all about buzzwords and everything. We are about value. And yes, you have delivered value, and we do appreciate you for being so selfless in doing so. May you be blessed tremendously. For everyone who's attended, I hope and pray that we will safeguard against two things. One is becoming now the new armchair experts, diagnosing ourselves and others, or two, the other side of trying to bury the information away because we find it may be offensive. I pray that we will find a nice and narrow middle where we'll be able to be sufficiently self-aware and supportingly aware about other people, enough to point them to help and enough to help us seek the help that we need to be, so that we can be healthy individuals, building healthy communities that make possible for healthy relationships. Our next session is going to be next week. We normally try to have this once a month, and yes, next week is the first weekend of August, and we're going to have a topic called spiritual bypassing. So you want to drag in all your spiritual friends and all your friends who would rather turn to spiritual means to avoid addressing important personal or community issues. Your friends who their solution to everything is let's pray about it. Yes, you want them to be present for the session so that we can have a genuine discussion about what James, the book of James, says about faith and works. Yeah, so if you yourself or you know somebody or you're just curious to know what this whole spiritual bypassing means and looks like, next week's session is a master 10 for if you fall in any of those categories. Again, we encourage you to, I don't know what has inspired Posa to put our Facebook page is up on the screen at this particular moment. It's called Authentic Dialogues with Sarah Jackson. And then there's a YouTube page with the same name. It's just called Authentic Dialogues, where all our conversations are chanted to. And there's a second YouTube page called Saya Jackson. And you can follow us on that. And on Instagram, it is One Saya Jackson. On TikTok, One Saya Jackson. Your thoughts, your feedback, your suggestions on topics would be much welcome. And of course, your likes, your shares, and your subscriptions would go a long way in motivating and encouraging. We've put together a course. You've heard a lot about self-awareness and knowing your purpose and figuring out your calling as being a beginning point in many of these discussions. So we've begun creating something called Tip-Top Transitions. It's going to be a suite of courses or experiences, learning experiences, designed to help you navigate important transition moments. So the first course that is available and live now is about finding, discovering, and living out your unique God-given purpose, so that it's not just some woolly construct, but it is very clear. Once you know your purpose serves as a compass, such that anything that takes you towards your purpose, you embrace, and anything that takes you away from your purpose, you discard. Your purpose is going to be an important tool to help you navigate important transition points in life. So please jump on. The course is self-paced. It's available for 5K Kenya shillings and the equivalent amount in dollars. I trust you'll be blessed. The link is, as has been shown on the page, and I think Posa will also drop it in the chat, and will be also attached wherever we will be sharing these videos. Thank you. Once again, to remind us is after this, we'll stop the live stream so that individuals who want to ask questions either that are sensitive or they do not prefer for them to be streamed online will be able to have like a 5-minute window to do that. Once again, thank you for making it time to be here, and please be tremendously blessed. Till next time, let's keep having authentic conversations.
And bye-bye.